essentially, I want to talk about the centrality of slavery, that the slavery and the subsequent, almost 200 years of economic and social brutality, the effect it had on descendants and the descendants today. But it also, we have to look at it again. What did it do? The wind in the back, the economic wind in the back of white people, white enslavers, their descendants, their businesses, and the growth of their businesses after emancipation. We often hear from whites, and many of you have probably heard this, including immigrants who are white or white presenting immigrants, saying, we came here later, we didn't have anything to do with this. Well, to be honest, they entered a system already set up for them. Italians, Jews, Armenians, others Irish, who initially were not considered white. This is a little bit aside, but eventually came to be seen as white. They all eventually have benefited from this. And as some of you were here at our prior event, the land grants, the GI Bill, the free education, the Homestead Act, all of these programs serve to really propel whites and white society forward at all levels, not just the wealthy, but those who are not wealthy, who became wealthy. And as you may recall, Lane himself and Diane, each of them did very personal, very emotional and difficult presentations about how their own families were benefited or were hurt by this. Finally, I want to talk about economists, and I've been reading a lot about what they call the moral imperative of economists, that economics, the study of it, is not this neutral, as people like to think, this neutral science. Power and capital played a huge role, obviously a mainstay role in slavery, and it still plays a role in capitalism today. And essentially, Professor Derek Hamilton, who I don't quote him, but the idea that he brought up is that power and capital adjust to alter the rules and structures of transactions, meaning the markets, to privilege that very power and capital. So it reminds me of a time, let's say those of us here who run businesses, who work in businesses, imagining having a business where you largely have no labor costs. And due to the theft of early land as well from Native Americans, and also, by the way, the theft from Black farmers, we'll talk about that at some other stage of land. Imagine really running businesses without those costs. It's really something astounding to think of. And that's really what went on back in the day. And finally, I know economics and finance are cold and it makes our eyes roll back in our heads perhaps, but we need to sit and figure out how to try and understand this the best we can as non-economists and non-financial people. And I can guarantee you I am not an economist or a financial person in any sense of the word, but I have tried to link myself to people, economists and academics I trust, in order to understand really the depths of this situation. So one of the things I want to impress upon you here is seeing Raoul Peck's Exterminate All the Brutes. It's about slavery, but the global colonial theft of land, it's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary work, and it will really help you understand this. Next slide, please. So this is just more a reminder of how finance and economics are tied to the base of slavery, of the slavery era, the economic slavery era, and as well as to the reparations movement. Again, we are doing this in aid of understanding why reparations are fundamental to changing the society, and that, 100 million here from Netflix or 150 in scholarships from SoftBank, et cetera, the things we read that companies were doing after the George Floyd murder, those are choices those companies are making to move 1 or 2% of their wealth. That is not reparations to me. And frankly, it doesn't totally impress me at all. We'll talk about that near the end. And I'd like all of you to think about that as well. One of the points here is that U.S. slavery itself, the production, the entrepreneurs in slavery, they created a lot of the accounting and operational systems that companies use today. And I won't go into those details, but all of that information is available. And here's, for example, an annual record of a planter. You see it says the planter's annual record of his Negroes. This is in 1850, and the value of the people at the time. We need to come to terms with the importance of this to really understand the magnitude of the theft and how whites, whether purposefully or not, continue to benefit fully from what was created. Next slide, please.